guys, my name is Walter.
I'm Chidozie.
And you're welcome to the Minority Report Nigeria. In this episode, we want to talk about, it's sort of going to be like we are traversing relationships and sex.
But in a more personal way.
Yeah.
Because this is about us, really.
Exactly.
As to, well, he's closer to, he's 30 something, going on 60, and I'm a cute 30.
There is a thunder. There is a special thunder waiting to fire you, you know?
Oh my god. So you know how when you're about to turn 30, you know, generally society makes it seem as if your life is about to end. Oh my god, what have you done with your life? You're about to turn 30, the big 3. Well, it does turn out that 30 plus is not that bad after all. The other downsides, there's the back aches, and your body just doesn't function the way it used to. You know, you tire out more quickly than, you know, when you are in your 20s and all of that. But it improves in a lot of ways.
It does.
Relationship wise, the sex is better because you know your body more.
There's a growth that comes with, you know, the way you handle things. You know, generally speaking, you have a lot more. I mean, it's sort of like the 20s is seen as some sort of like testing phase. You're just basically testing life in your 20s, and then by the time you're reaching your 30s, you
coming into your own. You're starting coming to your own if you haven't come into your own
already. You know, so things just seem like there's like this world weariness, like been there, done that kind of attitude, and that adds to your growth. I think, you know, and so for instance, like I remember the relationships I had when I was in my 20s were always I always had like this, oh my god, my life is ended kind of thing whenever it comes to them breaking up, you know.
I can't relate.
That thunder is coming closer to you. So you know, and these things are always so dramatic and so everything just feels like, you know, the world is ending, and if you're not having it now, my god, why is this happening to you? But then and I think, you know, like there's a certain level of you know, when you get into your 30s, it's like, man, a person don't old.
I mean, you know? the heart has been held with Aradite over and over again, and it breaks again. So at this point, it's like, okay, where do you want to break it?
It's true.
There's no spot to break. It's all broken. This is kintsugi. This is the art of melding things together already. So,
because I remember the last breakup I had. My boyfriend was talking about us going on a break. And I'm like, okay, so is this a break, or is
it mid-term break, like, or is it long vacation? Like, what exactly is it? Can you
I need to know so that I know how to like you know, gather myself, like how to apportion my mind to what is going to this reality, which I would not have done had it been I was way back in my 20s. At that moment, it would be like, oh please don't do this to me, I am dying without you. You know, that kind of thing is.
So it's where I am that you have power. I see.
So you know, so you know, like, but now it's like, okay, so all right, we're back here again. All right, you count how many times you've been here, and it's like, there's nothing breaking. I mean, it's breaking, but it's like, whatever, please, can we just move on? You know, let's just get to the next chapter. And also, there's like a bit of a downside to it, because I feel like when you're in your 20s, and of course all these things are relative, really. When you're in your 20s, there's there's like everything feels like there are possibilities. You do this now, and then there's always time, like there's time, like, exactly,
fix the error.
Exactly. You always feel like there's time to redo it again, but then you cross over into the 30s, and it's like, okay.
But you know, the funny thing is that in my case, it's quite the opposite. I am more vulnerable now than I was in my 20s. In my 20s, I was literally, for want of a better term, I was an ice cream. Like, you couldn't get, no matter how, I was always guarded.
I think I can quite understand that reverse mechanism.
I was always guarded. Like in relationships, I was like, okay, like from the get-go. And I guess looking back now, I realize that this has I think I've talked about this once before. I have alluded to this once before, but this had a lot to do with my experience of sexual abuse, as a child. So something I was always very aware of was like power dynamics in relationships, and always making sure that I held up the cards one way or the other. So one of the ways I guess I that used to play out is, making sure that I wasn't the person who was more vulnerable. I used to hold back a lot. Like I used to internalize a lot of emotion rather than I'm a lot more expressive now. But like because my first relationship was when I was 16, and looking back now, I put that person through the ringer. The person I dated then was very emotional. And one example of something that happened was, so I was in school, I was in 100 level then, this person was in 200 level, and they finished writing exams and then they went home. So I was in school, and this person came to school to surprise me. I was talking with a group of my friends, and this person came behind me and stood and covered my eyes and all of that, and then I turned back, looked, and I just turned and continued talking like nothing happened, which was really mean. Like when I look back, so it was those sort of things. Looking back then, I was inside then I was excited, but there was just something about showing that emotion. Oh, I'm excited, and or then that
you have some power over me.
Yes.
Yeah.
So my relationships, particularly like around 16, 17 up to like 20, the first relationship where I allowed myself, this was because that relationship lasted 3 years, and then the next relationship, it ended when I was 19. The next relationship was when I was 21. That was the first relationship where I allowed myself be a little vulnerable. That was the first time I said, okay, maybe we'll try this out. But then that whole power thing, and it was a very toxic relationship, like it was a mess. Looking back now, I think it was a mess. So the person was cheating, right? And then they cheat and then they lie about it. And I would know, but then I wouldn't say anything. I would take that information and use it as some sort of weapon. Like when you least expect, we can be having just a regular conversation about something now, and I'll be like, yeah, you did this here and here and here and here, and I knew and I saw you, and everything. That kind of stuff. So it was really messed up. I had to take. There was a period when I consciously did not date anybody for a long period of time because I knew something was wrong, and I was actively trying to like get in touch with myself and to like work through a lot of these feelings, because this was something that actually like took roots as a child. I remember, I'm going to get to a lot of stories. This whole power dynamics thing, like I'm being very aware of it. I think when it struck me, when I became, and I think I was about 7 or 6 when I became aware about that power thing. So we had this next door neighbor, a lot older than me, obviously, and he would, there was this one time. So it was like all of the adults were, because I grew up in this neighborhood where it was very close knit. Everybody loved everybody. If you're going out, if my parents were taking us out to the amusement park or something, we would take our neighbors' kids along. So everybody was pretty close. So from time to time, because this was certainly, so it was either 97 or 98. I was either 7 or 8, because we bought our first generator in 1998. So this was before that, way before that. It was either 96 or 97. So it was one of those nights when there was no power and everybody came out of the house and all the adults were gisting, and then he, sort of like carried me and he put me in his lap. And then he started to have an erection and he was rubbing his erection against me. And I mean, I was 6. This was 96. And I was 6 and it was like,
who is he? Like
a neighbor.
A neighbor, okay.
So it was like, okay, what the fuck is going on? Right? And it was, but this wasn't my first experience of, sexual abuse at the time. It was, I don't know, a couple of people at that time. But yeah, so it was like, okay, what the heck is this? But the funny thing was, the way I reacted to that particular one. First of all, it wasn't something just. I don't know whether I say snapped in me or something, but then a couple of, I think it was the next week, he came to our house. My parents were not around. My mom went somewhere, so he was I think he just said he was going to come and watch TV or something, and I was the only person in the living room with him. And then he reached over, and then he touched my lap in this very sexual and stuff, and I held his hand. And I looked at him and I was like, I could tell my mom, right? And then he didn't say anything. And from that moment onwards, like, just that, like, there was nothing I asked him for. I would ask him for that. I didn't need to say anything. It's just I asked for it, and I look at you in this way, like, I have a secret. So I learned how to drive pretty early. I learned how to drive when I was 12.
Oh my God, wait. I just realized what this narrative is. You learned that power. Like,
yeah.
At least it served you well at 7, 8.
Yeah.
You just basically grew up
with that.
My goodness.
So I learned how to drive when I was 12, and I basically learned how to drive with his car. So he came. By then we had moved to another house then. So he came to visit, and then he came, and then I took his car key. And I told him, you're going to teach me how to drive. And I was like, no, you can't teach this. It's new car. I was like, I don't care. You're going to teach me how to drive. I was 12. Literally 12. So he was arguing, and I went into his car and I started it. Then I already knew the basics. Like, I knew the clutch, the throttle. But what I didn't know is the intensity of, like, handling the brakes and all of that. So he's like, you're going to teach me how to drive? No. And then I put it in gear. Move the car. You're going to teach me how to drive. I was like, okay, please, I'm going to. And that was basically how I learned how to drive. I basically, like, without saying anything, blackmailed him, for want of a better term, to teach me how to drive. So, like, that was, and it wasn't even just all the relationships outside, even within my family at a point. Like, it was always about power leverage. Those were the only things I used to see things through. I remember having this conversation with somebody I was dating at the time, the toxic one, and it was like, do you realize that you treat relationships like a competition? Like, you always have to win. Like, and that was literally, it's like, so this was somebody was cheating on you and lying. This is something that ordinary. It was hurtful, right? But my thought process is, okay, how do I come out of this not looking like some victim of something? So I would take that information, I will sit on it and not do anything. Like, we can just be having a conversation about, we can talk about literally anything, talking about, I don't know, painting. And then I would just bring it up in a way. And I'm very calm, very chill, like, it's nothing. There was this particular one, okay, we were at the salon. And I brought up something about cheating. I said, like, oh, your hair looks good, and blah, 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 blah. And it went to something about the bathroom. I was like, yeah, I've forgotten how the conversation went, something about bathroom, something. I was like, oh, the bathroom, like where you slept with so-and-so person or so-and-so day. Yeah, I saw you, I knew. And it was like, nothing to say. And it was like, really, what is wrong with you? Something is wrong with you. This is not normal. And the way you, like, kept asking me, like, okay, what else about me do you know? I'm like, like other things, but I'm not about to tell you. So for the longest time, that was like, that was how I approached relationships.
And just to be clear, these were all, like, this was a character part that was formed because of your earliest abuse.
Yeah.
Before the neighbor.
I became aware, like,
no, as in, like, no, like the victimhood that informed you wanting to be in power,
in control all the time, yeah,
was
Yes.
Was the earliest abuse.
Yes.
Before the neighbor.
The ones, it started before them because I was, they were like, I look at myself now and I like, oh my God, it's so amazing how I have changed and grown. Like, even my brother says sometimes, like, when we were growing up, he used to call it my avatar state. I was so territorial. My temper was insane. Like, my temper was literally homicidal. You know, but a lot of those, the older I get and the more, because it's work, I'm not even going to sit here and pretend like it hasn't been a lot of work. It has taken a lot of like self-awareness, you know, being able to look at myself and say, okay, you're doing something wrong. This is bullshit, you know, like, and I want, you know, healthier relationships. I want better relationships. So it has definitely been a journey. Like, well, yes, it's stemmed from
but do you think
the earlier?
I mean, I don't even. I'm not even trying to sound like a psychologist,
Yes,
but do you imagine that if those abuses hadn't happened, do you think you might have had a different structure of relationships as you grew older? Do you imagine that you might have grown up believing that power was, you know, you had to have power in your relationships?
No. If that hadn't happened, I would have been a fundamentally different person than I am now.
Especially,
in every sense of the word.
Especially the vulnerability. What you're exhibiting now is what you would have exhibited much earlier.
Yeah, because I am actually a very like. Oh God, I can't believe I'm saying this. This is not good for my public image. But I am, you know, a very emotional person. But then I learned pretty early to build these, you know, this defense, you know, around that. So it was a defense mechanism in many ways, but I am learning to lean more. The older I get, the more I'm learning to lean into my vulnerability, like, because, and I guess the more I walk through my issues, you know, the easier it is.
You know what this just made me realize? I mean, emotionally, you're sort of like in your teenage years, I think.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. In some way.
Because I'm thinking, where's those of us who, and I'm not saying this to be superior or anything.
No, of course.
But where those of us who didn't go through abuse have gotten to now, where it's sort of like world weariness about all these things we have, sort of like all this drama we have had in our 20s, and now we're just basically like we've lived through it all.
Mine happened in reverse. I had the world weariness first.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. But I'm thinking, like, do you imagine you plotting that same graph where, okay, you experience vulnerabilities now, but then you may now also get to the place where it's like, okay, so I have gone through this thing again. Like, I'm thinking,
that probably would have been the trajectory. I guess I can't know.
No,
but I guess if I didn't.
Yeah, that's what I'm just saying. It's interesting when you've experienced it in the reverse. Yeah. But I'm thinking, okay, even if there is that reverse, do you imagine that with you having experienced that world weariness before the vulnerability, do you think you would, like, because the way it is for someone like me now, the vulnerabilities, then the like, okay, been there, done that, and that just continues. You get? But do you imagine your vulnerability is something that will continue, or will you graduate back into just being like, okay, so I've lived this, you know? Seeing as you have already done that.
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, this what. When in terms of like even being vulnerable, I mean, I to be quite honest, I haven't dated much, but definitely the quality. Okay, I actually haven't dated until recently. I haven't been in a relationship in God knows how long. Last relationship I was in 2017, and it was basically a cameo because it lasted all of 2 seconds. But yes, like, and even then, that was one of the problems. Like, to be clear, the problem wasn't with me, but then the fact that I was guarded did not help issues. Yeah. So, but since then, you know, I have progressed a lot. I used to have a lot of intimacy issues, which, I mean, it comes up because I don't know that these things ever actually go away. You know, it comes up every once in a while. But, you know, I guess I have all my pep talk lined up in my head.
But and not to give any credit to the horrors you suffered as a child, but in a way, I feel like you have a better protection of your emotions now.
Yeah, because absolutely. Because even when I feel very emotional and I feel all lovey-dovey, like, oh my God, I love you so much. I am still. This is still working. Like, okay, what is going on here? Where is this going?
Like you can even while your heart is making its demands, your head can actually be having a logical conversation.
Yeah, and give my heart a hard reset at any point in time when I think, because at this, one thing I'm really happy about is I love myself enough now, that I have a set standard and I will not go beyond
that. The importance of loving yourself before you be in love with someone else is because when you love yourself, you know what you can and cannot tolerate in a relationship. Yeah. And that's the basis of knowing what you can tolerate. But in your own case, like I feel like it's a different foundation. Like it didn't really come from self-love. It came from already knowing your power, and then it's like, okay, so I have gotten to this place where I know you've been empowered.
Yes.
Albeit with very in a way that shouldn't be, where you've been empowered like this, and so now you know that you're that bad, you're that kind of a bad bitch that knows so and so are things like that. But I'm thinking through this process, like, where do you now transition from having these expectations of what you want from a place of empowerment to a place of self-love? Like, because isn't it a little, in working your issues out of here, do you not feel like that affects everything you have built around this? Like,
I sort of feel like self-love is like the natural consequence of working through recognizing the problems I was having I had with myself and with myself in relationships, recognizing those problems and then working through them. Well, working through most of them, still work in progress, but we'll see. So, like, I think, you can't go through that process of, like, in a lot of ways, like, re-engineering, because that's really what it was, like, re-engineering your thought process, choosing how I am going to react to things. Okay, you can either react to this by climbing up, or you can welcome it, you can respond to this, you can enjoy it without, like, worrying about a gazillion things at the same time, without projecting and thinking, this would go wrong, this could go wrong, this could go wrong, because I have imagined that it could go wrong, it will go wrong. That sort of things, that sort of thinking process sort of like starts to affect the way you react in that relationship. But and that still comes from a place, I think, when it comes right down to it, there's no way to sugarcoat it, it still comes from a place of feeling unworthy of love. But when you can walk through all of that, the subtext there is, you can't go through all of that without having it at the back of your mind that this is something that I deserve. So I think the self-love bit is inherent in the journey. It is, all the journey culminates in that. So where I am right now, I feel like pretty comfortable in my skin. Like, before me open my mouth and tell a person I love you first, never going to happen. Not in this life. But then right now, I really just don't care. It's like, I feel what I feel. Whatever you do with this is your business. But I'm only responsible for my emotions and my feelings, and this is what I feel right now. I feel it in this moment, and I like that I feel it in this moment. I'm going to enjoy it.
And you don't feel like you have to micromanage the fallout of you expressing yourself.
No, I honestly, whatever you do with yourself, that's entirely your responsibility. I'm really not interested in, it would be nice if it's reciprocated, but then if it's not, I'm good.
No, I'm just marveling at the growth that comes from always wanting to come out of a relationship with looking shinier than before.
Yeah,
I'm getting to the point
I mean,
where
it was a must. Like that was a prerequisite. I can't come out of. No, please. It was always a power tussle, like literally. And I guess I've had a lot of practice with masking my emotions and like subduing my emotions. Like it's like a muscle. But by the time you do that for a very long time, it becomes like second nature. Even till now, to an extent, and it's something I try to avoid doing. I have this habit of, like when something happens and I don't want to deal with it, it's almost like I take it and I put it in some box at the back of my mind, and it's like, okay, I'm not going to deal with this now. Like even it's not very healthy though, because
it's not.
Yeah, it's not healthy.
It's one of the things that's contributed to the the destruction of the last relationship I had.
Yeah.
I think he was also, although I don't think he was abused, but he had some of the same lack of communication issues that you obviously. Like he would know something that he should talk to me about, but then he would rather just shelve it and be like, somehow he's going to get over it. But you never really do.
No,
these things just stay somewhere to corrupt.
Yeah, he's a lot nicer than I was, because in my case, it wasn't really about internalizing things, because to find some sort of way to deal with it. It was about all of these things were weapons in my armory, basically.
No, but even then, but like, because it's still the same end point, because whether you are internalizing it because you want to deal with it later, or you don't want to deal with it, or whether you're internalizing it because you want to hold on to it for a time when you can use it, the end point is still it becomes a weapon in the end.
Yeah,
but I guess in the end, I just like. What do you think, like someone, not like a therapist or anything, but like, what do you feel like someone who is going through something like this, where they are how they handle sex and love and relationships is rooted in some sort of past trauma? How do you imagine someone should walk through that?
Well, the first thing is you have to be honest with yourself. You have to want something better than your typical impulses, and you have to be very honest with yourself. You have to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and still tell yourself, okay, this isn't what I want for myself, this isn't working, and I want to improve as a person. I want to be a better person. And I also think it's important to stress that wanting these sort of changes and working towards them, it has to be on your instance, not on the instance of another person. It can't be because I'm in a relationship with somebody and this person is complaining, so I'm trying to be better for them.
Yeah.
Because in that sort of situation, you will very likely be fashioning yourself or working towards the needs of that person who you can break up with any day. So it has to be that sort of goal has to look inward. You have to be very inward looking with it, and it has to be a question of what works for me. Where do I want to be? What are these impulses I want to drop? What are these things I want to be better at? And you have to be able to be very honest. And it sounds easier than it actually is.
Yeah.
Looking at yourself and being honest with yourself.
Introspection is a very hard thing.
It's actually a lot more difficult than it rolls off the tongue, introspection. But when you actually have to do it and tell yourself, okay, this is a problem, this is ugly, and you have to be better than this. So the first step I think is acknowledging that there's a problem. Being honest with yourself about what the problem is. It's easy to rationalize things. Okay, yes, maybe I did this, but they did this too. It's not about anybody else. If you really want to grow, if you really want to get past a lot of these hiccups, it can't be about anybody else. It has to be like the things that you can change, the things that you can fix. And this change is something that's constant. Like everything, it's a muscle. Like you have to keep reinforcing it with yourself. if you don't want to self-sabotage relationships, you have to be aware, you know, when you start to self-sabotage things, like you have to have enough awareness, and you have to be honest enough with yourself to tell yourself, okay, you are doing the same thing again. And then not just that, because it's one thing to acknowledge the feelings, but you also have to find ways to, and this I guess is dependent on the sort of personality you have, you also have to find ways to actively try to walk past those emotions. So what do you need? Do you need a support system? What does that support system look like? Are they friends? Are they family? You know, do you need somebody? Do you have somebody in your life who is, you know, who tells you when you are being, you know, just ridiculous, somebody who doesn't bullshit you? So it's, everybody will have to look around themselves and find what works for them in the journey that will get them from point A. These impulses are rooted in trauma, to point B, where you know, are able to build healthier bonds. It's not you don't get these impulses, but then you can, when these things come up, you can choose a healthier approach.
Yeah. Wow. That was an unexpected dip.
I know, this wasn't what was supposed to happen.
It really wasn't. But we are here.
Yeah.
But hey, I guess this, you know, that's the dynamic, you know, that you know, we get to talking about something and then
we land somewhere else.
But you know, take from this what you may. It's always, at the end of the day, we just want, you know, we want a world where people live healthier, do healthier things, and then make healthier choices. Yeah. But that is our show for today. We would like to know your comments on what you have to say. Just sound off in the comment section, and subscribe if you're new to the channel, and hit the bell for notifications anytime we upload
new video.
But yeah, that's it for today.
Until you come in next time, I'm Chidozie.
And I'm Walter. Bye.
Bye.